He was a bastard born into the prestigious sword clan, a child cast aside, belittled, broken, and forgotten. But fate, as if moved by his suffering, offered him a second chance. Reborn in blood and flame, he began again, this time committed to mastering the art of war. He discovered a truth. Life and death were not opposites, but intertwined paths. He might be broken, but he would never surrender. Now, he walks the blade's edge, rewriting his story with every swing of his blade. This story begins in chaos, a palace engulfed in flames. Smoke choked the skies, and fire raged uncontrollably. Servants sprinted through the inferno, screaming for their lives, only to be cut down by masked assailants. They weren't spared, nor could they fight back. In the heart of this hell, Ragnar was locked in battle with one of the invaders. Steel clashed against steel with a shrill ring. Theo parried the enemy's attack, his blade moving instinctively, but the enemy was fast, striking again from above. Theo barely managed to block, and sparks burst as the blades scraped together. The Ragnar clan was no ordinary family. A great ducal house, it guarded the empire's northernmost frontier from the Great Northern Wall for over 1,000 years. The clan's legend was built on the claim that dragon blood ran through their veins. Every descendant was born with incredible magical prowess, insane physical endurance, and a natural affinity for swordsmanship. Every descendant, except for Theo. He was the exception, the worthless one. And in this fight, it showed. Another blow broke through his guard, sending him crumpling to the ground with a deep wound. His opponent loomed over him and scoffed. All this time, and you still don't get it. There are some things you just can't do, no matter how hard you try. The man spoke with disdain, as if looking down on a stubborn child. Usually, people like you blame it on a lack of talent. Theo looked up in disbelief. The man pulled off his mask, revealing a face that sent shock and betrayal crashing through Theo. It was Rendan, his teacher, the one who had trained him day after day. Rendan sneered. Seeing you train every morning, trying so hard when it's pointless, was pathetic. You've never had talent. It was like watching a dog learn to dance. He chuckled bitterly and added, Worthless Ragnar. That's what they should call you. It's fitting. Theo's body trembled. You offered to teach me, to be my fencing instructor. All those techniques, were they just meaningless moves to waste my time? He drove his sword into the ground in fury, but in a flash of steel, Rendan's blade swung, and Theo's arm flew off, blood spraying across the scorched floor. Theo screamed. Rendan casually shook blood off his sword. Why are you blaming me? He asked coldly. He grabbed Theo by the hair, forcing him to lift his head and face the devastation. Look around. The palace is burning. Your family is dying. Why? His eyes flicked toward an ally dragging a lifeless woman across the bloodied marble. When her body was tossed at Theo's feet, his world collapsed. It was his mother, cold, lifeless, gone. Rendan continued, Why is your mother a corpse now? It's because you're worthless. In a clan built on power, you were the weakest link. Theo froze, unable to comprehend it all. His head spun with grief, betrayal, and rage. But suddenly, something inside him snapped. With a furious scream, he grabbed his sword and launched himself at Rendan. But he never reached him. A blade flew from the side, stabbing through his chest. Another assassin stepped forward and said to Rendan, You're talking too much. Finish him. Rendan nodded. My bad. Got caught up in the nostalgia. Theo's vision began to fade. The fire danced before his eyes. His mother's body lay still. His teacher stood over him. A traitor. He had failed to save anyone. Is this how it ends? If I had talent, would any of this be different? Tears fell down his cheeks. The world turned black. Then, something strange happened. A translucent screen floated before his eyes. You have died. Activating regression ability. Returning to the designated regression point. When Theo opened his eyes, a wooden sword was swinging in front of his face. His heart pounded in his chest. What just happened? Let's end training for today, a familiar voice said. Theo blinked, stunned. It was Rendon. His arm was back. He was standing. There was no fire, no corpses, no blood. Rendon looked annoyed but normal, as if none of the horrors had ever happened. Theo staggered back, his eyes wide with disbelief. Didn't I just die? Wasn't I bleeding out while the palace burned? He couldn't believe it. The first face he saw after death was his. That traitor's smug face. Is this a punishment? He wondered. Even death can't spare me from him. As he tried to make sense of things, another screen popped up. Punch your instructor in the face. Theo stared at the screen, completely bewildered. What is this? A hallucination? A gift from the gods? He looked at Rendon. The man couldn't see the screen. Theo clenched his fist. Whether this is a dying dream or divine mercy, I'll make the most of it. He lunged forward and socked Rendon square in the jaw. For a moment, Rendon just stood there, shocked. Then, his eyes flared with anger. What the hell was that? He shoved Theo backward. Theo rolled across the ground, bruised and confused. That hurt, he realized. I can feel pain. This isn't a dream. Rendon sighed, exasperated. I get it. You're frustrated. The awakening ceremony's coming, and you've seen no results. But attacking your teacher? He gave Theo a disappointed look and added, Besides, you're a Ragnar. You should be using a sword, not your fists. Then he turned and walked away, muttering, Lessons over. Theo sat there, dazed. The other students laughed, mocking him. He just punched his teacher out of nowhere. What a joke. Is he really a Ragnar? Even for a bastard, this is a new low. But Theo didn't hear them. His fingers pressed against his face. He could feel the pain. The texture of the floor beneath him. This is real. Then it hit him. The awakening ceremony. It hasn't happened yet. This is 10 years ago. His hands trembled. I went back. Another screen appeared before him. Training task complete. Reward. Awakening of the Ragnar. Talent accept reward? He hesitated for a moment, then hit yes. A blinding light burst from his chest, sucking in energy from the surroundings like a vortex. The system displayed, talent acquired. Stat growth will now accelerate. Theo's eyes widened. This isn't just a second chance. It's a system, and it was just getting started. Sometime later, in the tranquil Rose Palace, Rendon paid a visit to Lady Cecilia, Theo's mother. She served him tea with a warm smile. How's Theo's progress? Rendon smiled thinly. I've never met someone with so little talent, but that's why I'm here. I'll do my best to prepare him for the awakening ceremony, no later than 5 months from now. Cecilia beamed. I'm not worried. I believe in my son. She handed him a pouch of gold coins. Just keep a closer eye on him. Rendon pocketed the coins with a smirk. Of course, I'll teach him day and night. But as soon as he stepped into the hallway, his expression twisted in contempt. She's just a concubine, and her son is no better. A complete waste of time. He weighed the pouch in his hands and smiled cruelly. Still, this is good money. And I get to be known as the instructor of a Ragnar. For feeding information and stunting Theo's growth, the Camellia Palace promises a bright future. Worthless Ragnar, you'll be the reason I rise. Just then, he heard hurried footsteps. He turned and saw Theo sprinting down the hall. Worthless idiot, Rendon muttered. But Theo ran past him without even a glance. He doesn't matter right now. Theo rushed straight into his mother's arms. She was talking with a servant when he interrupted, breathing heavily. Theo, you must be tired from today's training, she began. But before she could finish, Theo embraced her tightly. Cecilia was caught off guard. What's gotten into you? Tears welled in Theo's eyes. She's alive. I really went back. Images of her lifeless body flashed in his mind. Never again. This time, he would protect her. He would protect everything. He held her tighter. Later that night, under a dark, snowy sky, Theo began training. No more hesitation, no more doubts. He ran through the snow, pushing his body to its limits. I want revenge. I want to crush Rendon. But I'm too weak. But this time, he had information. In his past life, He had joined the intelligence agency Black Snow. Though demoted due to his lack of skill, he had still come across valuable secrets. Secrets like the Emperor's Bloody Sword elixir, a potion that drastically enhances physical abilities. The extreme body tempering training he once gave up on. Back then, none of it worked. He had no talent. But now, he had Ragnar talent. He trained through the night, running without rest. By dawn, his system displayed training progress, 27%. He picked up a wooden sword and began swinging. Now I can run farther. Swing faster. He pushed harder. Progress, 65%. Other students arrived and stared at him, shocked. He's been at it all night. Is that really Theo? He ignored them. There was only one thought in his mind. Stronger, stronger, stronger. Days passed. Theo never stopped. From a distance, Evelyn Narrated, manager of the 4th Training Grounds, watched him. A former elite of the white-armored dragon riders, she'd lost her left arm in battle. Despite her retirement, she was known for her principles. She despised cowardice and corruption. Lighting a cigarette, she observed the boy training non-stop for days. Wasn't he supposed to be worthless? She muttered. His body trembled with exhaustion. He looked like he might die. But he never gave up. Progress, 97%. Last night, he rested for a few minutes. The system punished him. Progress dropped to 89%. He never made that mistake again. Now, with blood on his palms and blisters on his fingers, he roared and pushed forward. 99%. 99%. He kept running. He would run until he forgot how to breathe. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. How's he even still moving? With one final burst of effort, Theo swung his sword one more time. Training task complete. Reward, Dragon Heart acquired. A radiant light burst from his chest. He collapsed, but the system wasn't done. Bonus reward, 10 years' worth of magical energy accumulated. His fingers trembled as he pressed accept. A surge of energy blasted through him, kicking up a storm of snow and wind. Evelyn jumped to her feet in shock. Theo lost consciousness. He awoke in a warm bed. Startled, he sat up, his muscles sore, but his body intact. Evelyn entered. This is the resting room at Training Ground 4, she said. You passed out. Even a Ragnar wouldn't survive pushing themselves like that. Theo blinked. Evelyn Narrated? Glad you remember. She handed him a glass of water. Tell me something, Theo. You do know that opening your mana hall before the awakening ceremony is forbidden, right? Theo froze. And you do know the penalty for doing so? He hesitated. I didn't. You sure? She said, her tone turning sharp. Because just before you passed out, a burst of mana was detected. Like the kind that happens when someone opens a mana hall. He felt a warmth in his chest, the place where the dragon heart resided. So that's what she sensed. Her eyes narrowed. You opened it, didn't you? He looked up, then smiled nervously. Are you sure you can handle what happens if you're wrong? Her brow furrowed. As a Ragnar, if you falsely accuse me, it's considered a direct insult. The punishment is execution. She paused. He continued, voice calm but firm. You willing to take that risk? She hesitated. Then she reached toward his abdomen. Her hand hovered for a moment, glowing with mana. She searched for the mana hall. Her eyes widened. Nothing? That's right, he said, feigning confusion. She dropped to her knees. I have made a grave mistake. Please, carry out the sentence. I'll accept death. Theo looked down at her and smiled. Of course there's nothing. A dragon heart isn't in the abdomen like a normal mana hall. It's in the chest, hidden. He reached out, patted her shoulder gently. There's no need. You acted out of principle. I respect that. Then he turned toward the door. You risked your life for the truth. That's rare. I value that. He paused. Besides, the ban on mana halls before awakening is about safety. You were worried I'd overfill mine, weren't you? She looked up, speechless. Theo smiled. Thanks for caring, Evelyn. And with that, he walked out. As the days passed, Theo continued training under Rendon, pretending to be weak. The man barked useless commands, unaware that the boy before him had far surpassed him. Theo found it harder and harder to stay quiet. He's honestly proud of teaching me garbage. Rendan swung his sword lazily. Make sure your angle's correct, you idiot. Theo's fingers twitched on the hilt. I wonder, does he even know how little his techniques matter? Theo looked up, and for the first time in this new life, smiled confidently. He dropped his sword and said, I can't listen to this crap anymore. Rendan blinked. What did you just say? Theo took a step forward. Your techniques are nonsense. I doubt you could even take down a demonic beast. The entire training field froze. Rendan's face turned red. You little... Repeat that. I said you're unfit to be my teacher. You were hired to stunt my growth. You're a fraud. Gasps echoed across the field. But Theo didn't care. The time had come. News spread fast. Theo Ragnar had challenged his instructor to a duel. Even the palace of the Camellias, one of the Empire's great noble houses, heard of it. At a luxurious bar inside their estate, Axion Ragnar, known as the Dark Tiger and one of the 4 Hounds of the North, was laughing over drinks when the news reached him. The bastard Ragnar is fighting his own instructor? A messenger reported. He's challenging him for sabotaging his growth. Axion slammed his drink down, furious. Why the hell should I care? The messenger staggered back, blood trickling from a cut on his face. Next to him sat Remington Narcio, the Silver Lion, and another of the 4 hounds. He said nothing. Then the bar door opened, and a 3rd hound entered. Ed Truven, the Sky Dragon. The room went silent. This is important, Ed said flatly. If that boy changes, so will everything. Axion scoffed. It's just the bastard Ragnar. He's nothing. Ed shook his head. Even the smallest spark can turn into a wildfire. A week passed. The day of the duel arrived. The 4th training ground overflowed with spectators. Among them stood Evelyn Naraville and Julius Ragnar, the demonic dragon commander of the white-armored dragon riders. Theo stood in the center, face calm, eyes locked on Rendan. I didn't expect this fight to go public, but now that it has, I'll make sure it ends him. A system screen appeared in front of Theo. Training task number 3, win the duel against Rendan. He smiled. Perfect. Earlier that week, Theo had told Rendan he was fired. The man had protested, saying the contract wasn't over. If your employer says you're fired, Theo had replied coldly. But the situation escalated. Evelyn had proposed a solution. Let's do it the proper way, she said. A duel, as the Ragnars do, by the right of the strong. Rendan grinned, confident. He believed the worthless Ragnar didn't stand a chance. Theo didn't protest. Not publicly. But inside, he was nervous. I'm not strong enough to defeat him yet. But this duel might give me the edge. Back in the present, the match began. The audience buzzed with whispers. That's Theo Ragnar. He looks like he can't even hold a sword properly. Rendan's going to tear him apart. On the field, Rendan grinned. Last chance to beg, boy. Apologize now, and maybe I'll let this slide. Theo raised his sword. If you don't want to lose an arm, just accept your dismissal. Rendan's grin twisted into a snarl. You'll regret that. He raised his sword and beckoned Theo forward. As your instructor, I'll let you strike first. Theo didn't hesitate. He charged. Steel met steel. The crowd gasped. Again and again, their swords clashed. Students stood from their seats in disbelief. Is he holding his own? Wait, he blocked that? That's impossible. Rendan growled. This doesn't make sense. He's nothing but a failed apprentice. But Theo remained calm, confident. Theo had gone to Evelyn the night she proposed the duel. This is madness, he said. I can't beat him. You can, Evelyn said calmly. You're underestimating your potential. Besides, I've been watching. She explained how she had him followed. She knew Rendan's training was off, deliberate sabotage, and all the evidence traced back to the Camellia Palace. Theo clenched his fists. All of this because of that stupid war for the throne? She nodded. He's not your teacher. He's your enemy. Back to the duel. Rendan howled. You're faking it. You were always this strong? Why pretend? Theo calmly stepped forward. Let me ask you something. Who's backing you? Rendan flinched. You really think I didn't notice? You taught me wrong. You sabotaged me. Was it the Camellia Palace? Rendan's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Theo smiled. Thought so. He raised his sword. Do you know what it feels like to lose an arm? With a clean slice, Theo's blade flew. Rendan's arms soared into the sky. He screamed in agony, falling to his knees. The crowd gasped. Total silence fell. Theo stepped forward, gaze cold. You told me it was all my fault, that my mother died because I was weak. He raised his sword again. Well, now you die for the same reason, Rendan begged, but the blade swung, and his head dropped to the ground. Training task complete, bonus reward unlocked. Theo wiped the blood from his face, the arena still dead silent. He had done it. He was no longer worthless. He was just getting started. A hush fell across the training ground. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Theo Ragnar, once mocked as the worthless one, had just killed his teacher, a mid-rank swordsman, in a public duel. One student stammered, "He actually won?" Another whispered, "He killed him." Just like that. Evelyn Narvale said nothing. She had expected this. She'd seen his potential. No, his resolve. Julius Ragnar, standing beside her, smiled. The system interface appeared once more before Theo's eyes. Bonus reward. Skill awakened. Observation. Additional reward. 1 year of accumulated magical power. Observation. Theo blinked. What does that even mean? Before he could think further, a loud thud shook the ground behind him. A figure descended through the dust. Heavy boots thudding like war drums. Theo spun around and froze. There, standing in a cloud of scattered dirt and mana aura, was a towering man with sharp eyes and a fearsome presence. Julius Ragnar, commander of the white-armored dragon riders, known as the demonic dragon. Theo's heart pounded. Why is he here? Had he been watching the whole time? Evelyn groaned, hiding her face in her palm. He could have walked down like a normal person. Theo tensed as Julius approached, powerful aura spilling from his body like a storm. The man's glowing eyes scanned him up and down. Then he broke into a booming laugh and clapped Theo on the back. That was incredible. Theo stumbled forward, stunned. A student surpassing his own teacher. That's rare. Disrespectful? Maybe. But from what I've heard, he deserved it. Theo blinked. You're not mad? Who cares who you killed? You did it clean, Julius said, grinning. Now, come join the white-armored dragon riders. The offer stunned everyone. Evelyn smiled slightly, clearly pleased. But the crowd? Shocked. One noble watching asked, "Has this ever happened before?" Remington, the Silver Lion, replied, "A student who hasn't even passed the awakening ceremony, offered a place in the white armor." He rubbed his chin. "Number, I've never heard of such a thing. But then again, this wasn't an ordinary case. Julius Ragnar wasn't an ordinary man." Remington continued. "Even with great swordsmanship, he might not have magical potential. The commander is betting on something he can't prove, unless he can see something others can't." Theo stood still, stunned. He really wants me to join? Then, slowly, he looked up and said, "No." Gasps exploded from the crowd. Julius blinked in surprise. Evelyn dropped her cigarette. Everyone's jaws dropped. Theo smiled faintly. "I don't think I'm ready." Not yet. Word of Theo's refusal spread like wildfire. At the Camellia Palace, Emil Ragnar stood by her window, watching snow swirl in the darkness. "He killed Rendan," she said softly. Her brother Ed nodded. "You sent Rendan because he was expendable. We never expected him to survive." "But Evelyn was involved," Emil said, "and the demonic dragon himself tried to recruit him. We can't interfere directly anymore." Axion Ragnar entered the room, rolling his eyes. "Why worry? The clan leader won't care. Theo is still weak. He's nothing." "He's changing," Emil said coldly, "and that makes him dangerous." Axion scoffed. "He's still a bastard. Evelyn and Julius always had a thing for hopeless cases." Ed turned to him, frustrated. "We should have stopped you from acting on your own." Axion shrugged. "You worry too much." He pulled a letter from his coat. "Well then, since you're all so concerned, I'll play with him a little. Remind him of his place." After winning the duel, Theo began training with Evelyn. They finished another training session, and he thanked her, saying that learning from a normal teacher like her was a different matter. She said that it would be better if he joined the white armor. He thought about why he decided to refuse. He would be lying if he said that he didn't regret refusing at all, since this was his dream in his past life. However, joining them right now would not lead to anything good, since he had no reason to limit himself so early. When he thought about all the privileges that would pour in at the best awakening ceremonies, joining the white-armored dragon riders was nowhere near as good as that. He told her with a smile that he didn't want to receive any special privileges. He still thinks he's not good enough. It's enough for him that she's training him for the awakening ceremony. She smiled and said that the commander would be upset. After that, he used the observation skill on her, and the system showed him all the information about her. She's 24 years old, a former deputy commander of the white-armored dragon riders, and a high-ranking swordsman. She admires Theo's modesty and character, and training him for the first time in a long while makes her feel empowered. She also misses the dragon riders. He thought that this skill was very useful, and that he would definitely be able to use it to his advantage later. The last line really interested him. Suddenly, Sybil Dre, who came from the southern inspection post to talk to Theo, approached them. He was slightly surprised by this, and because Sybil looked scary, he decided to use the observation skill. Sybil smiled widely, and a slight blush appeared on his cheeks. The system window said that he was 17 years old, an apprentice swordsman, and quite loyal. He is looking forward to Theo, and feels a strong desire to fight. Seeing him wanting it with such a look, Theo became very nervous, as did Evelyn, who had already put her hand on the sword. The system announced the beginning of the last training task. He needs to get rid of the nickname Worthless Ragnar. The progress has reached 28%. With his hand on his heart, the boy declared his desire to follow Theo, and honestly admitted that he had been ignoring him all this time, just like everyone else. He thought that the nickname of a loser suited him perfectly. Theo began to get annoyed by this. The boy said that after he learned Theo went out every morning and trained harder than anyone else, he warmed up to him. He remembered how Theo executed his teacher and exclaimed that the result of all that effort was his stunning victory, which he saw with his own eyes. When the demonic dragon itself descended upon him, Theo became his idol. While he wanted to quit training after receiving the nickname of a blockhead from the southern inspection post, Theo appeared, so he asked him to give him a chance to cross swords. Theo remained silent, and thought that normally he would doubt the honesty of his intentions. But judging from the system window, he was quite sincere. This was unexpected. After his victory in the duel with Rendon, rumors spread about an invitation from Lord Julius. He thought that he would be a target for people who wanted to fight him because of their complexes, but he did not expect that instead there would be people willing to follow him. This meant that at least someone still had pride in Ragnar. Of course, he will need his own people to eventually become the head of the clan. This task is the last of the training. He needs to get rid of a title that he could not escape from in his past life. With this new opportunity, he will completely reject it in his new life. He asked Evelyn for permission to duel, after which he raised his sword and stated his name, saying that he is an apprentice swordsman of the Rose Palace, awaiting the awakening ceremony, and that his teacher is Evelyn Narville. She smiled. Sibyl responded by formally introducing himself. He is a swordsman apprentice of the Southern Inspection Post. He inherited the style of the Kur clan, which specializes in high-speed attacks. He challenged Theo to a duel, and then rushed to attack with a loud cry. As soon as he swung his sword, Theo blocked his strike. He thought that Sybil was quite fast. Even if they call him an idiot, he is still confident in his speed. Theo blocked the strike again, but Sybil expected that. His skills are good. Meanwhile, Theo thought that in his past life, he would have barely been able to land a few hits on him. But of course, this time he won easily. With that thought, he intercepted the sword and hit Sybil in the stomach with the hilt, causing him to be thrown back. Drool flew out of his mouth as he fell to the floor with a thud. After recovering, he sat up with a smile and said that this is what he expected. He admitted defeat and thanked Theo, saying that he had learned a lot. Theo brought the sword to his face and told him that it had been a good fight. His gaze suddenly fell on the reflection in the blade, and he wondered if he could use observation on himself. He decided to try it, and he succeeded. The system showed all the information about him. His title is Worthless Ragnar. He has the talents Player Ragnar and Observation. The rest are closed for now. He is waiting for the awakening ceremony. He is level 1. His strength is 13, dexterity 14, endurance 12, magic power 190, intelligence 11, and luck is minus 49. After that, the system reported that he had seen his characteristics. From now on, they would be marked with numerical values. He thought that since his abilities were listed in the talents column, it meant that if he continued to complete tasks, he would receive 4 more abilities. He was very happy that he could check his own stats. It seemed like his magic power was pretty strong, thanks to the reserve from his past life in the Dragon Heart. But why was his luck negative? Was he cursed or something? Were all his failures in his past life really because of this? He decided to find a way to improve his luck. Suddenly, he heard a conversation behind him and turned around in surprise, seeing the guys gathered around. Evelyn glanced at them and thought that no matter how weak Rondon was, he was still an average swordsman, and Theo had defeated him. He even received the approval of the commander. Given the worship of strength in the Ragnar clan, there were only 2 possible reactions from people to all of this. Either his clansmen would envy him, or he would become the object of their admiration. The people gathered here must be from the latter. After seeing his victory over Sibyl, they were convinced that the rumors were not lying. Now they looked at Theo with admiration, and even thought about the options for events if they themselves found themselves in a fight against him. They all also wanted to fight him. Theo drew attention to a guy named Eod Nallen. He is 19 years old. He is a pillar of the Viscounty of Nallen, and also a low-ranking swordsman. He is very passionate and stubborn, eager to fight Theo. Theo looked at him with a smile and said his name, which made the guy excited. Then he asked him to come forward and offered to fight him. Iod came forward and said that it was an honor. He introduced himself as the 3rd son of Viscount Nallen and said that he studied the double elevation style of fencing. Theo introduced himself in return and hoped for a good duel. They rushed toward each other, and their blades clashed. Theo's basic swordsmanship was enhanced. Swinging his sword, Iod aimed the blade at Theo's head. When there were only a few seconds left before the collision, Theo put his sword in front of his face and disarmed the enemy. The system reported that the mastery of the sword style changing heart had been increased. Iod was very surprised by what happened. He admitted defeat. The system informed Theo that he had received Iod's approval. His luck had been increased by 1 unit, and he also gained experience. Now, understanding how he could increase his luck, Theo decided to fight other swordsmen. This time, his opponent was Benat Romero. He easily defeated him and increased his luck. Then, he fought another guy. There were still many who wanted to fight him, and he defeated each one, increasing his luck. After several fights, he had already managed to get tired. The guys he had defeated were sitting around him, but he still decided to continue. He asked who would go next, but no one answered. He decided to check his progress. At the moment, it was 29%. He looked at the guys and thought, is his progress only 1% because these people were already so nice to him? Does he need to fight stronger opponents and demonstrate his skills in front of the audience? He needs a new event. Remington, who was standing in the crowd, walked toward him and noticed that he looked tired. Then he asked if Theo was okay. Theo told him that he would rest when he needed it. The guy offered to fight him this time. As soon as he came out of the crowd, Theo immediately recognized him and became worried. He is one of the 4 Hounds of the North. The 4 Hounds of the North are Hulkus Lank, Ray Ragnar, Remington Narzio, and Axion Ragnar of the Shamalaya Palace. This is a title given to the 4 strongest people of the awakening ceremony in this generation of the clan. Remington told Theo his name and said that he came early to witness the sword mastery of his lord Ragnar before the awakening ceremony began. He picked up the sword and thanked him with a smile for fulfilling his whim. Theo used his observation skill on him. Remington is 17 years old. He has the talent of a sword genius, heightened senses, and is extremely persistent in his work. He is currently surprised by the appearance of an unexpected opponent. Theo responded by stating his name. He is the 31st son of the great defender of the North, Kyle Ragnar, and also an apprentice swordsman awaiting the awakening ceremony. He smiled nervously and thought that he never expected his meeting with the sword genius he respected to happen like this. Even if he ignores the task he received, he just wants to fight him with all his might. He said that it is an honor to cross blades with the famous deputy head of the Narzio clan. Remington replied that he is already looking forward to a great battle. Theo smiled and prepared himself for the fight, wondering if he could defeat Remington in his current state. His opponent walked toward him, and behind him, a silhouette of a silver lion appeared. They both swung their swords, and their blades crossed. The system reported that the progress of the task had reached 30%. The swords clashed, and sparks flew in all directions. The protagonist focused on the duel and moved forward rapidly. Suddenly, his sword became covered in cracks and broke into 2 pieces. The spectators watching the fight were perplexed. Could it be that the young Master Theo was defeated? Sibyl could not believe it, while his comrade noted that it was quite predictable. No matter how much the young master's strength increased, he would not be able to defeat the 4 hounds, the strongest swordsmen of their generation. Sibyl hit his chest with his fist, and exclaimed, "What a fighting spirit the young master showed." At that moment, Theo announced his defeat. The astonished spectator stared at him, and he, holding the sword in front of him, thanked his opponent for a good duel. His sword was badly worn out, and he felt very tired. This duel was a defeat for him. The protagonist, clutching the hilt of a sword in his hand, replied that no one cared about his condition on the battlefield, and with the loss of the sword, he had lost. Their eyes met, and after shaking hands, Remington said that he hoped for their next meeting, when they could fight at full strength. The protagonist replied that he was counting on it too. The boy was surprised to see that he was recognized by one of the 4 hounds. His comrade exclaimed, "He sees young Master Theo as something else." Then a system window appeared in front of the protagonist, which said, "Tutorial Quest number 4. He must get rid of the nickname Worthless. Ragnar progress is 35 out of 100%. Evelyn sighed, smiled, and thought that he was strong. The protagonist realized that thanks to the secret guidance and the talent he received from completing quests, he had become much stronger than in his previous life. However, the moment their swords collided, he felt that he still lacked strength. It was a pity that the duel was interrupted, but he still gained valuable experience. His luck increased by 10, and his reputation increased significantly. Although the quest progress did not change much, he could try other methods. What could be a great opportunity to increase his reputation? The next second, Remington, turning to Theo, honestly admitted that he did not come here only for the duel. He wanted to invite him to the Scaled Dragon Society and handed over a letter with a seal. Sibyl exclaimed in surprise, "The Scaled Dragon Society? An elite group that can only be entered by invitation," and Remington invited him personally. The protagonist was surprised that he was invited to the Scaled Dragon Society. He looked at the letter and asked if he really belonged there. Their group was quite famous. Remington objected that this was nonsense. He was more than worthy. Putting his hands forward, he added that this was not a very serious society, just a group of his peers waiting for the upcoming awakening ceremony. Sibyl asked, then why wasn't he invited? The boy next to him said how he wanted to cry. The protagonist didn't know what Remington's motive was in inviting him. After all, the Scale Dragon community was centered around Axion. It was full of snobs who looked down on him. It was just the perfect setting for the quest to progress. Besides, it would give him the opportunity to learn more about Axion and the Shamalaya Palace. He saw no reason to refuse. He then reached for the letter, thanked for the invitation, and stated that in that case, he would accept it. The progress of the tutorial quest increased by 1%. The onlookers exclaimed in surprise. He even joined the Scale Dragon community. Remington shook his hand again and said with a smile, that was the right decision. If there were any questions he should ask, don't be shy. The next meeting was in 2 weeks. Evelyn, taking a drag on her cigarette, watched the proceedings in silence. After a while, in the Palace of Roses, Cecilia opened the doors and entered the room, exclaiming, "Dear son." The protagonist, turning around, noticed her and said that he wanted to share news with her. Then, the servants of the palace entered the room, and he, surprised, asked what all this was for. Cecilia, approaching him with admiration in her eyes, explained that she had heard about his invitation to the Society of the Scaly Dragon. This society includes Axion, the son of the cunning Amal, and brilliant talents such as Remington, who even the council pays attention to. The next second, the subordinates began to choose suitable fabric, and Cecilia added that everything from his clothes to his behavior would be carefully assessed. She knew that he would not allow blunders in his etiquette, but behavior outfits were a completely different matter. She put a measuring tape on his chest and told him that she would help him with that. He might have forgotten, but his mother was once an actress. She was so happy to help him. Her son, who was an illegitimate son of a commoner, concubine? His mother always felt guilty for this label placed on him. Although it was not her fault in the cold Ragnar clan, it was so hard for her to have a son with no talent. She then pressed her head against his chest and said that his mother believed in him and he would do well. He looked at her silently and then hugged her, adding that there was no need to worry any more. She said that her son had joined the community, and the protagonist thought that he was going to break the community. 2 weeks later, on the night of the Scale Dragon Community Banquet, Remington stood near the carriage and, noticing Theo approaching him, was surprised. Is it really him? He looks like a completely different person. The protagonist walked up to him and awkwardly asked if even he was making fun of him. Remington, he laughed and pointed to the open carriage door, adding that he was simply being sincere. The protagonist walking into the carriage thought that he was right. Not only had he grown taller, but his muscles had also become more developed, the result of 2 days of hard training. Remington had suggested that they train together a little earlier. The protagonist thought that he had been visiting him every day for the past 2 weeks. They had become quite close. Not to mention his new followers. Evelyn, holding a cigarette between her teeth, sighed and said that she simply wanted to teach young Master Theo a little. How did she end up getting involved in all this trouble? The protagonist remarked that it had been a tiring 2 weeks. Remington, standing in front of him and holding his hand out in front of him, said that he had heard that this was his first official banquet. He confirmed this, and Silver Lion said that there was no need to be nervous. He knew that he would do well. However, there was one thing his friend Axion could be quite mischievous. However, it was he who gave him the invitation saying that he wanted to meet him, so he hoped that he would not think too badly of him. He even prepared this banquet for him. MC was surprised. It was not Remington who invited him, but Axion. Everything was going too well. Then he said that he was looking forward to it, knowing that he could be greatly offended. Meanwhile, Axion Ragnar pulled a glass of drink towards himself, and smirking said, "Useless Ragnar, he is so happy with his new toy." After a while, the carriage stopped, and Remington announced that they had arrived. Then they got out of the carriage. The protagonist looked at the palace of the Chameleos, and thought about those who had once sent Rendon to interfere with his training, and those who had swallowed him, his mother, and the Palace of Roses. His companion walked forward and asked if they could come in. The protagonist confirmed this, and they headed towards the entrance. Remington said that he had heard that Axion would come out and greet them personally. He was probably already waiting at the entrance. The protagonist thought that it was obvious why Axion had invited him. Since the worthless Ragnar had suddenly started showing decent results, Axion was most likely trying to cause him trouble. However, he had not come here without a plan. He smiled and thought that he would make Axion realize who he was dealing with. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to a blue light coming from the window. He wondered if this was the light of a quest inside the palace of the Camellias. The next second, Remington called out to him. An alarm and a sack of flour fell right next to him. The protagonist said he was fine. Remington looked up and was indignant. What were they doing up there? The protagonist, dusting off his clothes, thought that in his past life this could have hit him. He wasn't sure he could have dodged such a blow. He thought that Remington was involved in all this too, but it seemed that was not the case. A system window appeared in front of him, informing him that Remington was perplexed by the unexpected situation. Then he looked up and thought that they were greeting him with flour. Those who do something like that. One of the guys looking out the window said that this was just a friendly greeting, common courtesy. Remington shouted indignantly, "A greeting?" Axion, smirking, asked, "What is he really angry? This is just a simple greeting between brothers." A system window appeared in front of the protagonist, which said, Axion Ragnar, male 17. Title Dark Tiger, rank Swordsman's Apprentice, talents, Madman Psychopath, overwhelming swordsman talent status, waiting for the opportunity to play with a new toy. The protagonist, smiling, said, "Thank you." Axion was surprised, and the protagonist spread his arms out and replied with a smile. Of course, how could he not thank him for such hospitality? He was looking forward to today's banquet. Axion grinned. He had become funnier in time he hadn't seen him. After a while, the protagonist and his comrade walked inside, and the people present were chatting among themselves. What was Axion thinking? Even though he belonged to the main branch, but to invite this good-for-nothing into the scaly dragon community. Didn't he see he was treating him like a toy? Remington then turned to Theo and apologized again. They didn't usually act like this. Theo replied that everything was fine, and he was truly grateful. His comrade looked at him in surprise, and the protagonist thought, they can say whatever they want. They should curse at him more so that he could crush them later. By the way, it seems like the place where he saw the blue light is in that direction. He looked at the second floor of the building, the door of which was glowing blue. The protagonist was sure that this was a mission, but there was no way he could head there without raising suspicion. He then took a sip of his drink, and Axion approached him. He asked, "How was he? Was he enjoying the evening?" The protagonist thought that he should calm down and proceed according to the plan. He then spread his arms out to the sides and said, "Of course." He thanks him for the invitation. Axion replied that this is true, and he apologizes for what happened earlier. He overstepped his bounds a bit. He then put his hand on the protagonist's shoulder and asked with a smirk, he will accept his apology. Right. Remington called out to him in annoyance, and the protagonist was surprised. An apology for what he only remembers. The greeting, Axion laughed, hit him on the back, and shouted, "Just look out there. Theo, he is good. He did not think he was like this. He has changed a lot compared to how he used to be. He likes him more and more." The guests were enjoying their drinks. One of the guests said, "They should just look at how he laughs and acts like a dog." Axion, his companion, added, "A bastard child with no roots can't fight back against the noble blood of Troy Van." His companion laughed and said that it was true. Even if they were both Ragnar, they were on completely different levels. The guest agreed with him and added, "How can you compare Troy Van, the noble plan of the swordsman of the East, and a random woman? But why is Remington fluttering around him?" His companion replied that if you think about it, he is also a bastard. The next second, he shouted that he should think about what he is saying. He said that it is true. It is a taboo topic. Remington, hearing these words, stopped lowering his head. The protagonist thought that he wanted to watch a little longer, but changed his mind. Then he turned to Axion and asked. He was supposed to greet his new friends. Right then, he walked forward. His comrade looked at him in surprise. The protagonist took the bottle of alcohol and approached John Hanavi. He looked at him in surprise and asked, "Did he say something wrong?" But the next second the bottle smashed on his head with a crash. The people around looked at what was happening in bewilderment, and John, clutching his head, which was instantly covered in blood, lay on the ground and screamed in pain. Raising himself, he exclaimed, "Damn idiot! How dare he, the protagonist?" Without hesitation, kicked him in the face and clarified, "Idiot." He just greeted him, and he started cursing. The people around were confused. What was just happening? The progress of the training task was steadily increasing. Remington, amazed, thought that Theo was not the type to do such a thing. Was this done for his sake? MC declared that this was the end of his greeting. Then, he grabbed the victim's hand and added, "But he also has to say goodbye, right?" Stepping on his hand, he broke the bones, and the boy desperately begged for mercy. The protagonist did not listen to him, and the progress of the training quest continued to increase. Then the protagonist adjusted his bangs, and looking at the people present, asked, "Does anyone else want to say hello?" At this moment, several guests grabbed their swords and ran towards him, holding it to his neck. They exclaimed that the sin of attacking the young master will be repaid with death.